Okay, so the first paper I have is actually, we're starting with The Guardian, and it's Vincent Kompany waving a black and red flag. Pep Guardiola reignited my love for the game. City play the football I want to play. It's the football I want to teach. And leaving on a high. Kompany heading home after a City career like no other. Obviously like no other because they were crap when he arrived and now they're not.
The back page of the Irish Daily Mail goes with Cork. Rebels rising is the headline. Cork stunned the champions at Gaelic grounds. And Mooney to call the shots. Adam battled FAI. So this is Noel Mooney returning to the FAI to take charge of the association. Has been appointed as General Manager for Football Services and Partnerships and is going to start his gig on June the 3rd.
The front of the Irish Times this morning. Cullen readies Leinster for final test. This is Leo Cullen. They think it looks like Sexton's going to be back to start for the final. And also the question about what constitutes a successful season for Leinster. Leinster already have fallen short of last season's double, the highest threshold possible. So would 2 losing finals be seen almost ridiculously as bordering on failure? Who's the judge of that? Answered Leo Cullen rhetorically after Leinster's 24-9 semi-final win over Munster. The big thing is getting to finals. If they were to lose, it would feel like, I'm sure, there would be heartbreak for the Leinster setup. And then Limerick shaken to the core as Cork demolished the apple cart. This was the question that we've been asking. Limerick rolled through the league effortlessly. And then, was it just a little bit? This is a setback, but they looked still good enough to be able to come back from that. It didn't look terminal, I didn't think.
No, they're not on a Waterford level here for sure, but it's still a game at home. You lose one game at home, especially your first one up in the Munster Championship, and you're in big trouble. I wonder
I think that's just a small sample size from last year. So Cork have already lost at home this year and recovered. And who was first day out? Where did Clare win?
Well, Tip have won back-to-back games. Tip won on the road, and they won at home now. Clare won at Waterford.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're going to see more of that happening.
Yeah, for sure. And Wexford will feel they should have got the job done in Parnell Park as well yesterday. The Sun goes with simply the bust. Fans want statue as Vinny quits Etihad. And City give Pep high five. Pep Guardiola will be given the opportunity to stay in charge of Manchester City for at least the next 5 years. And Real bad for Bale, says the story here from La Liga at the weekend. He faces being booted out by Real Madrid after a brutal put-down by Zinedine Zidane. The Welshman was benched for their final game, then snubbed Real players' pitch farewell to fans. Asked why Bale didn't feature in a 2-0 home loss to Real Betis, Zidane snapped, "If I think a player doesn't fit in, I do what I think works best." And then he goes on to say, "No one can change what Bale has done for the team, but as a coach I have to live in the present. I've counted on other Real players more in recent weeks. I don't know if it's Bale's last game or not."
He said if he'd had a fourth sub, he wouldn't have put him on.
It sounds like it might be.
Okay, hang on a second, right? So here's coming through. We saw that headline, right? I was at Zidane's press conference earlier after, who's tweeting this, Tommy? Ben Hayward, right. After Real Madrid's game against Betis. He did not say anything remotely close to the "if I had a fourth sub, I would not have brought him on." Yet everyone reports it, nobody checks. Fake news spreads fast. I read it in the BBC yesterday, that's where I got it. Now, here's the thing. You can be at a press conference, but there's also a mix zone. So maybe the manager said something afterwards. I'm just saying. Ben Hayward denies it though. It's a pity, it's such a good story. It's so annoying. It's such a good story. And it's gone everywhere. It was like, oh wow. Because everybody was saying that he was effectively sacrificing. Bale was a sacrificial lamb for the new Zidane era. It was like, look, this guy has won the Champions League for me in such amazing fashion. Humane killer to the head, off you go. Thanks very much. Now it's just like, I didn't use him as who cares? Did that get asked? If I brought on another player, the same would have happened. By this I'm fairly sure he means that whoever is not subbed on would be asked about afterwards. But from that to what was reported is a massive stretch. Irresponsible, says Ben Hayward, which is a fair point.
That is, that's very interesting.
Luckily my colleagues did check and we didn't run it. But so many have. And the worst thing of all is that it's an agency piece. Agency has a responsibility. They're supposed to be the filter. Newspapers and websites rely on agencies for accuracy. Ben Hayward throwing shade at the agencies. After the agencies did the best work after the FA Cup final though, so.
Well, that's true. The wheel always turns in that regard. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. Like, this is a really uncomfortable situation for Zidane all the same though, isn't it? It's like he desperately wants to say something or desperately wants to push him out the door and is just confined by the fact that there was a terrible, terrible contract negotiated.
Yeah, but it's Real Madrid. They can afford to eat the contract.
They can, but it still doesn't look good. The optics aren't great of this guy sitting on the reserves, just playing his but we've had this conversation before. Is that really what somebody like Gareth Bale wants? Has he got to this position in his life by being somebody who's just content to sit in the reserves?
No, but there's a point where that drive disappears.
Yeah.
When does that drive disappear?
Perhaps it's already gone.
When your talent goes, or when you get rich. There was talk of him being available for a free transfer, and I don't want to misquote something here, but apparently he's available on a free transfer. Who in the world would spend all the money to get Gareth Bale on a free transfer? You see Gareth Bale's name on that team sheet and you think, ooh, wow.
Well,
Ed Woodward's thinking to himself, ooh, is he the new Sebastian Schweinsteiger?
We'll swap Alexis Sanchez for you.
Yeah.
Which problem would you rather have?
Bale. I definitely would rather have a Bale problem.
There's actually no other reasonable answer to that question other than Gareth Bale, really.
But I mean, it might not be as clear cut as we think. What if Gareth Bale is just at Alexis Sanchez stage?
God, that would be a really that would be a very depressing sort of situation to be in. Can that really happen to a player 12 months on from winning a Champions League? We're not even at the 1 year anniversary of that, of him grabbing that situation by the scruff of the neck and taking Real Madrid to another Champions League title, of him wandering around the pitch in Kiev on his own away from his teammates. That was only a year ago.
I know, yeah. I mean, all the signs were there, right? They knew what the truth was.
The Herald goes with the Dublin Hurlers. Back from the brink reads their headline. Nothing less than 2 wins will do, warns Kenny rather. And Mooney steps up to new FAI role. Josh return a huge boost is the Brent Pope verdict for Josh Van der Veer, of course, brilliant against Munster on Saturday. And Kompany bids fond farewell as City celebrate the treble.
The Kompany is also the front of the Telegraph. Parting Kompany. Emotional City captain shocks teammates by quitting to join boyhood team Anderlecht after securing domestic treble. Dotty, we're exclusive. Just making a cup of tea can leave me sweating. And then dreading the call, Wiley fears out of missing on his World Cup dream. That's Cricket World Cup there. What have we got?
The Irish Daily Star is Kompany man, Anderlecht to get pep talk. So Vincent Kompany will export Manchester City's playing style to Anderlecht after he agreed to become their player manager on a 3-year deal. Mooney to take up FAI role, as we already mentioned, and Kylie demands response after they were beaten by Cork yesterday. Sexton was not dropped as well. This is Leo Cullen lashing out at talk that Johnny Sexton was dropped against Munster in the Pro 14 semi-final on Saturday. He said, I don't like the way some of the people have a bit of a nasty edge. Some of the things I see, players being dropped and all, the sensationalising some of the selections. I don't know who controls that, but it is what it is. We need to freshen up the group. Coaches make selections week to week, depending on what we think the challenges are. Surely people understand that, says Leo Cullen.
Well, no. I mean, I don't know if you watching the pre-match coverage, there didn't seem to be any consensus or acceptance of why Sexton wasn't starting the game from so I was watching on air, it was Tommy Bowe. Gordon Darcy was kind of like flitting in and out of that conversation, saying he didn't think it was that big a deal, but Eddie O'Sullivan and Donegal O'Callaghan were definitely like, he's your man. Donegal basically was saying this is a crisis in Irish rugby if he's not getting picked for a semi-final. And then Ross Byrne played well, and then Sexton played really well in the 15 minutes cameo that he had. So I mean, it seemed to me like, it seems in retrospect Leinster didn't feel like they needed their full strength team to beat Munster in a semi-final.
Like, on any other scenario I might be thinking you're winding me up, but like, you're actually bang on. They probably don't need their best team to beat Munster. The evidence on Saturday is that they definitely don't need their best team to beat Munster. You would have thought that, say 12 months ago, when we were kind of listening to Johan van Graan talk about the summer that was ahead for Munster, and it was a really exciting summer, adding the likes of Joey Carberry and Tadhg Byrne to the squad, who, in all fairness, have both had really good seasons. They've been two of Munster's best players. And Johan van Graan was also talking about freshening things up. You were excited for Munster at that point.
Yeah.
You were thinking to yourself, the gap surely is going to close. They may not win Europe. They may not, and Leinster may push on again. Somehow they might find a way because they've got an outstanding coaching ticket. But surely the gap is going to close some bit. I think it's very hard to make an argument against the fact that Munster have actually regressed a bit this season. I think they've taken a step back.
Yeah.
Like, they're further away from Leinster than they were 12 months ago. And Leinster aren't as good as they were 12 months ago. They're still one of the best teams in Europe, but they're not as good as the team that beat Racing in the Champions Cup final 12 months ago. And Munster are further away from that point than they were last year. They bang on about wanting to be the best club in the world. Well, they're as far away as they are from being the best club in the country at this point than they have been in the last 5 or 6 years. It was a real awakening on Saturday, and it'll be interesting to see how it might get brushed up, because this is one hell of a job that Johan van Graan has in his hands if he has any ambition of actually following through on what the club have stated, which is their worldwide ambitions.
Yeah, I think it also emerged Dougie Howlett is leaving. That was kind of a short line at the bottom of one of the match reports from the game. It was just buried, so I hadn't seen any formal announcement of it. I haven't seen it written or reported anywhere else, but like, he's been the centrepiece of their commercial strategy for the last 18 months. So this is massive sea change behind the scenes, from a coaching perspective and also from a business perspective. So look, maybe it's an opportunity for them to hit the reset button, but it does feel like they're, the best years of Peter Mahoney's career and the best years of Conor Murray's career have not been, have not coalesced with the club being run the best possible way on and off the pitch. And they're two generational talents. Like, you're unlikely to have the best scrum half in the world on your books, or one of the top two scrum halves in your world on the books for a decade again. That kind of passes around the world. So, you'd hope they get their ducks in a row pretty quickly. And then I think that Munster have gone way, way back. Like, they didn't score a try in the quarterfinal or the semi-final. 2 games against Benetton, and against Leinster, you don't score a try. Jesus.
And one of the more worrying aspects of it, Eddie O'Sullivan is very good in the Times this morning on Munster, saying that their line-out has been the best in the Pro 14, and yet we're seeing Munster unable to actually turn those into anything on the scoreboard. So they're getting brilliant attacking platforms and not being able to do anything with it. It's not just the lack of adventure or the lack of being able to put themselves into those positions. I don't know what it is, but it's clearly a huge body of work that's required. And to be honest with you, you're probably not a mile off when you say they've gone way back.
Limerick knocked off their stride. Rebels show their mettle at the point of no return. There you go, sorry, yeah. Need a pair of glasses. Look, it was proper Munster hurling, wasn't it? It was a great game. Kompany Gazette and Style, City's 6 million man was at the heart of club's rise from rags to riches. And then Dick Clerkin's column, Monaghan's lack of strength and depth comes home to roost as Ulster shows fight for throne is still intense. And then Cullen hits out nasty headlines. That was the comment we just talked about, where he was disappointed at the coverage of the decision to not start the game with Sexton.
One final newspaper for me, it's the Racing Post. The front of it is O'Brien talking about Dragonet could miss the derby for Shanty, and Davies' delight, Russell Add's victory to the Grand Steeple chased a parry to his glittering CV, and the back page is parting company, but Man City are likely to be even stronger next season. Did you watch the full FA Cup on Saturday?
No, I can safely say I saw about 4 minutes of it.
I got to 4-0. It's kind of like saying you made it to base camp. Got that far, and I turned back and watched Cavan versus Monaghan build up.
Red rebound, Horgan goal key is rejuvenated Cork upset All-Ireland champions Limerick. It was a pretty amazing performance, because when you've got a bit of the yips and you're a free taker, like, to continue taking frees and continue scoring them, I think is really something that we don't fully understand enough. Deschamps Brink, pointless Waterford to put to the sword by rampant Limerick, pointless. It's pretty harsh, but it's true. And then Van Graan admits testing somewhere lies ahead for Munster. So that coaching ticket decision and who they get from him. I gave you the Times Ireland edition there, Owen, if you want to do that one.
Yeah, this is an interesting newspaper this morning, because Johnny Ward has got this story. FAI called in to betting crisis. Association asked to investigate after bookmaker describes sums placed on Limerick game as scary. So it's League of Ireland First Division once again plunged into a gambling crisis after another game attracted suspicious betting on Saturday. So this game was between Limerick and Cove Ramblers, Limerick being backed in from 9-4 into 4-9. To beat Cove Ramblers away from home, Johnny Ward saying an inexplicable market move in a game that would usually attract little attention. So Paddy Power were offering odds of just 4-9 about Limerick 22 minutes into the game, and it was 0-0. Cove had originally been put in at favourites to win the game. Then they went 2-0 down. Then they levelled matters before losing 3-2, conceding 2 penalties. The Times have quotes from Stephen Henderson, the Cove manager, saying that he rang the FAI on Sunday asking the governing body to look into anything that may have been unusual. And with the outcome poised at 2-2, Johnny has information on this. Limerick were still trading it around even money on Betfair. At that stage of the match, over 73 grand had been wagered on the event on Betfair, over 69 grand of that on Limerick, and then both Paddy Power and Bet365 shut down all betting on the game shortly before Limerick's first goal, which of course is a fairly extreme measure. So it's a good one by Johnny Ward this morning in the Times. And Toner as well could miss out in Pro 14 final is the other story on the back of the Times Ireland edition.
Yeah, you didn't send Devin Toner best wishes because his knee injury looked pretty serious at that stage. You hope that it wasn't anything more than a bit of a strain. Torn limb from limb. Limerick 119, Cork 126. Limerick boss John Kiley finally declared his players will bounce back after slipping to defeat to Cork. Were they? Oh, it's limb because it's Limerick. All right. They weren't really torn limb from limb though, are they?
It makes it like it's a happy headline.
It is. Doesn't make any sense. Vinny, my blue chip company. Is Vincent Kompany joining Anderlecht the biggest story that it is on the tabloid back pages? Was there not loads of other stuff? I'm amazed that Vincent Kompany is... Who cares about Vincent Kompany at this stage?
Yeah, like in the sense of where he's going to next.
But it's also fairly obvious that like he's very near the end of his career. Is it just because they've won the cup final this weekend and there's a chance for them to put football on the back pages?
I would assume so. I would assume all the writers were at...
I get it for the Guardian, but then the Guardian didn't have access to what happened in the GA yesterday. No? I would have said that to the Indo goes with the Limerick Cork game. That was the All-Ireland champions.
Yeah.
Not a bigger story than... City's Rock vows to play the Pep way when he takes reins at Anderlecht. Now the tabloids think everybody's interested in Belgian football.
Well, we'll see.
Are we?
We'll see who's laughing when Anderlecht do an Ajax in a couple of years.
Yeah,
swashbuckling football.
And
we'll be playing this clip back to you.
And at that point, Man City will step in and go, Vincent, all that... whatever the phrase is that I'm allowed to use at 8 o'clock in the morning... all that sucking up you did to the owners on your way out has paid dividends. Come in and take our 10, 15, 12, 20 million a year, whatever it is, to manage, because Pep's gone.
Yeah, we'll tune you up to be the next New York City FC manager.
Yeah. Here is the Irish News this morning. Feel the burns. Orchard Star, too hot to handle for Down as Armagh edge a classic. Yeah, Armagh won that game yesterday, despite dramatic finale where, some people didn't quite know what the score was and we're telling everybody that there was a replay even in next week. But the truth is Armagh beat Down by a point yesterday after extra time in a thrilling encounter.
I think I should actually literally whisper this. The football has been okay this year.
Oh, yeah.
The football's been good.
Yeah.
I'm not completely jinxed it, but over the last 3 weeks there's been enjoyable football to watch. Saturday night was a very good game. Down Armagh yesterday was an absolute cracker. I think we're going to be okay. I think this might actually be the summer where we're like, there's a little sunset spotted in the horizon and we start galloping towards it very, very slowly.
Football's back, basically, is what Owen's saying.
The Dubs are playing next weekend. So
so Leinster hasn't quite tuned up to the point where...
The preliminary round of Leinster was good.
Yeah. All the games in Leinster not involving Dublin will be good.
Yes, they will.
Games involving Dublin will have some high-quality football on show, but there'll be one team playing it.
The one actual credible thing we can read into over the course of the weekend is two of the most memorable scores came from two long-range passes into the full forward line. One for Cavan right before half-time against Monaghan, and that unbelievable Rian O'Neill ball into Mernon for that Armagh goal that was fisted into the back of the Down net. Like, if teams start to play that way, where they start to realise that actually taking a bit of a pot shot, even if we can call it that, and do it that much of a disrespect into the full forward line and being more direct is a way to...
Tommy's saying Riley's passes were better.
Probably was. The fact that the Armagh pass ended in a goal in spectacular fashion just kind of makes it a bit more memorable. And also it's Rian O'Neill who's exploded onto the scene in the league this year, and we finally get to see him on our TV screens.
Were there two fisted goals in the Down Armagh game? Did Down equalise or nearly equalise? Didn't equalise. Closed the gap from 4 points to 1 point.
Well, that went straight in. That were.
Oh, okay, sorry. Again.
I don't want to say it went straight in.
There was consternation in the press box, I think it's fair to say, about that. It was like, a fisted goal. How did it go straight in? I don't know.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but my mind can only wander as to what you might be speaking about.
Jesus Christ. Right, say what you see, lads. Say what you see. And look at the scoreboard. Here's a pic of Shane Larry's Instagram. So, happy with my week at Bethpage, especially after Thursday. Great to have this man walking around with me for the few days, the great David Shaper Reynolds, who caddied for me this week 10 years ago at the Irish Open. Is it 10 years?
Yeah.
Jesus.
10 years ago this week as well, I think.
Wow.
Oh yeah, he says that in the actual post that it was this week 10 years ago. So
yeah.
Yeah, that was an excellent result for Shane Lowry. Kind of went under the radar yesterday. Himself and Rory McIlroy sneaking into that position, and it's been an excellent season for Shane Lowry so far. And I think overall, we won't really know until the end of the year, but it seems to me at kind of first look that pushing the USPGA to this point in the year has actually been a very, very good thing. And ultimately we're speaking about a tournament which, other than a mini meltdown by Bruce Koepka yesterday, was actually uninteresting due to the fact that he was so brilliant for the first 3 days. That I think the idea of having a major every month kind of keeps this cycle going nicely, and people were talking about Tiger to build up to this. We still had the afterglow of the Masters and all that. So for the casual golf fan and trying to keep this sport relevant in the mainstream, which it was for so long, I think pushing the USPGA to this month has been such a good move.
It'll be interesting to see what happens when the end of the season happens and you're like, is that it? No.
I was thinking last night, kind of in the context of everything that's happened over the course of the weekend, that the way the FA Cup was so revered decades ago and has now faded into complete irrelevance. There's no danger that golf kind of gets to that with a couple of the majors, is there? The Masters will always be fine, but you look at the FedEx Cup, and part of the USPGA coming to the front of the year, or to at least the second major in the year, frees up that back end of the season where everybody goes into full overdrive about week after week on the PGA Tour.
But all they're playing for is money. And so,
money and ultimately, what is the Premier League other than money and significant trophies? Granted, the league has always been important.
Yeah, but everybody plays each other twice, and it's in competition, and it's straightforward. Whereas, every golfer plays everybody every week, and you pick whatever tournaments you want to, and you can just play in the. Do you know what I mean? It's not the same. Point. It's not like it's one match play competition that they play every week, and at the end there's a. Top of you're the world number one, because that's basically the world number one thing. I don't know. I doubt it. I don't think anybody's ever going to be on the edge of their seat to see two middle-ranking golfers play off for the FedEx because they just happen to win for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, it's a fair point. There is a sense of repetition to that come the end of the year for sure.
Yeah, okay. Israel Folau has issued a statement saying that I still have a lot of rugby left in me. I believe I still have a lot of rugby left to me, and the potential impact of Rugby Australia's decision on my reputation and my career is substantial. Ultimately, I need to do what's best for my family, my teammates and the fans, so I'm considering all potential avenues open to me. Yeah, so basically he's saying nothing, but you wouldn't be terribly surprised to see Israel Folau fetch up in France next year, where they tend not to care about this kind of stuff. Or your past, whatever the French Foreign Legion in France might be. So that statement has been issued in the last hour or so, but it doesn't add any clarity to his situation, whether or not he's going to sue Rugby Australia or whatever.